All right. Let's make sure. Make sure we're all set up here. We'll give people a couple minutes to start filtering in. I put a promo code in our chats. Let me know if you guys can hear me okay. I have the mic kind of in a different spot. But I put a promo code in our chats for our new subscribers. 25% off your first month. And it's just AceMind NFL 24, all caps. Audio's good? Okay. Cool. I'm not sure if there's a way. I don't know. I'd have to play with OBS. I'll figure it out for the next one. It might also be like a restream thing about the resolution. Anyways, so I'm just gonna get going here. So this is still a development build that we have for our new site. We've kind of reskinned the front page and how the optimizer and sim work, and then also we have a nice little portfolio builder that we're going to keep adding on to as the season goes along. But just keep in mind this is a development build, and so things might go wrong today. I'm not exactly sure. We might find some bugs, but that's okay. Better to find bugs now than later. So this home screen should look pretty familiar if you used our site before. We just have your recent jobs here. If you want to run a new optimizer sim job, you just click here and it kicks off a job for you, or like gets you to the job screen. And then we've also added a little Discord update thing, so that way, let's say there's a bug that we found or a projections update or something, it captures all of our announcements here so you can see. But let's go right into today's slate. I posted projections and then they're pinned in our Discord MLB channel. And then we can run a job and take a look at the results. So here's like I'm just gonna start with everything now is on one page, right? So before you kind of like started by choosing what you wanted to do, choosing the contest or whatever, and then you would go step by step and do projections, bring in your lineups, do your config, and then run a job. And now we've kind of consolidated everything to one screen. So here I've already imported everything because it's already saved from a previous run I did. But we can go ahead and let's just go ahead and switch to Optimizer real quick. Give it a minute. It's going to load everything. And then we're going to bring in our projections. So I already have my projections here. Can import it. This part works exactly the same as AceMind does now. Give it a minute to update the draft group for us. And I think we found a bug already. There it is. It just took a second to update. Okay. So now everything's consolidated on one screen. We have these nice little team logos and game info for everybody. It's like Michael King on the Padres. And then we can quickly now, instead of having to kind of scroll through the entire projections page, we can filter down to individual games. So like here, we can just filter down to the Twins. And now it's kind of sorted the screen, so now we can see all the Twins. Sort on batting order now, so I can see my projected lineup for the Twins. I can see all my projections for them. Not really. I know Zebby Matthews had huge numbers in the minor leagues, but my model doesn't really factor that in too much, and so he doesn't have very high projected ownership or a great projection. I'm not sure how other sites are projecting him, to be honest. But anyway, so we can it's nice to see now how everybody's been imported. We can see our lineup, we can see our projections. And then let's say I wanted to X out the Twins completely. There's this option here where I can just X like this, and they'll get deselected. It might take a second to update. There it goes. So now they're all not selected. Raider, some users probably, not everybody. So then if we click back on the green, it selects every twin. It's not, that's probably something that we'll have to adjust. So like maybe if you click on the green, it only chooses back your players with the projection. But anyway, so now much easier to filter down to individual games and teams to see maybe where potential projection issues are. Maybe I want to look at the Giants. I'm a Giants fan, and I want to just boost all the Giants today. So like Kyle Harrison, I'm giving him a big projection today. He's going to be popular. But now I can easily filter to these guys, and I can just boost them all up. Let me just re-import projections because I don't want to have all those twins. There we go. Okay. So let's go ahead and choose our config. So now instead of having it on a separate screen, it's all right here. We're going to do 150 lineups is good. This is DraftKings. So we can leave this stuff as is. It's a 9-game slate. The defaults are probably fine to use. For stacks, I'm probably okay with the defaults here for stacks. For teams, let's look at our top stacks and see here. So my numbers today, like the Padres. I know they've been on fire since the All-Star break. And they're facing Zebby Matthews. Like I said, model's not really accounting for his numbers this year in AAA, wherever he was. So my stuff is a little over what the industry's projecting, it seems like. I'm also like the Astros, the Mets, the Pirates, and the Rangers all have positive leverage versus what the industry is projecting. So let's just... We don't need to add any rules or matchup rules here, I don't think. But now we have our config set, and it's just as easy as clicking run. And then it'll take a second, and then it'll just start the job for us while we're still on the screen. So we don't need to... So like you could keep editing this stuff, create a new job while this first one is already starting to run. But here we go. Now it's going to kick me to the job progress page. If I wanted to, we can go back, start a new job. See everybody's loaded in fine. Might take a minute to run all these lineups. But in the meantime, see, we can go right back here and rerun it. We can adjust some stuff. We can make Kyle Harrison have a higher projection if we wanted. And just rerun a job, and it'll just run these two jobs set concurrently. So you don't have to worry about like overriding one with the other. This optimizer job might take a minute. You got nice green font now here. Pops out a little bit. I know we just pushed a change to the default fonts too on here, and I think it looks a lot sharper. Mookie, next week-ish, definitely before football starts. Hoping for next week. We're going to start kind of stress testing it a little bit, make sure we catch everything. There's still a couple things that haven't been built out completely yet too that we need to add. But yeah, I'm hoping for next week sometime. And another thing I want to point out is here, the columns here, like batting order projection, all this stuff, I think we're going to be adding more data fields to this, so these won't be quite as wide. So for example, might include team totals or some kind of betting information would be a good example. Something we'll add here to give a little more information to the user. But that is probably after launch. We'll add that stuff. Do I sort by ROI? Yeah, in general I do. I'll show you how I do it here in a second once this optimizer job is done. Let's take a look at who Harrison. So Kikuchi, King, Gausman, and Harrison. Makes sense. I didn't realize that the that the White Sox are like 30 and 95. That's kind of unbelievable to me. I mean, I know they're terrible, but that terrible? It depends on the sport, Sean, and kind of depends on what I'm doing. I mean, for NBA, especially like with the late breaking news, I mean, with even the Sims only take a minute or so to run for the flagship contest. Something like the knuckleball today with 60,000 people takes a few minutes, like 4 or 5. But yeah, usually for like baseball, depending on when lineups are coming and stuff, I usually don't really start building until like half an hour before lock. I know everybody's different. Some people will be on their tools all day, but I mean, it's all kind of irrelevant until you get the lineups anyway, in my opinion. So now what has happened is our optimizer has finished running, and now we're on to our new portfolio builder page. And so now, right now it's just defaulting to using 20 lineups, but we can use any number of lineups. So we ran 150. We should be able to choose all 150 here. Okay. I don't know why it says 47 exists. Maybe Chan can explain that. But anyway, so now we have however many lineups we want to build. We're going to make it so you can type in any number here. Let's say you just play 50. You can type in 50. And we can see now our exposures for all these lineups. So I guess let's just go back to 20 just for a second. So in all 20 lineups, I have Kikuchi, right? 100% exposure. And let's say I want to reduce that to make it 50%. Then on our filter, max exposure, we can just change that to 50, hit apply. And now it's going to adjust our exposures, and already the bug hunt has started. I know Chan's been working on the queries for these for the lineup builders, so he must be doing something on the back end right now. But that's okay. So we can, let's see if I can get out of that. Uh-oh. And that's why we don't demo live tech. Hopefully I can refresh it here. Let's see. If not, it's okay. There we go. Okay, so now it's refreshed. We're back onto this. Chan, I'm not sure why that Kikuchi one broke. So I put it on Kikuchi. You say Kikuchi's max exposure. So we have this new player exposure, team exposure thing. And all we're trying to do here is just to make it so you can quickly see how much exposure you're getting to everybody. And then what exposures you want. So like probably you don't want to play 100% of Yusei Kikuchi tonight. But also something cool we have now is on this lineup screen, these green bars represent how much exposure you have. So like right here, this is 100%, so he has a full green bar. We have, what is this, like 10%-ish of Kyle Harrison? 20% is that much. So it's just a nice way for you to see when you're looking at these lineups, how much exposure do you have to these players. So then if you click on a player, we have this focus player screen now. So now it's highlighting all the lineups with them. We can do this for somebody else too. We can do this with Pete Alonso. So now we've sorted, and now we can see all 5 lineups that he's in. And just see what we're getting with him. In this case, we have 2 Mets stacks and then a couple Mets mini stacks with Alonso. And then we're also going to include a team exposure thing that we haven't finished building yet. But the basic idea here is your stack exposures for NFL and baseball. Let's say you want to make sure you're getting 20% of a certain stack. You'd be able to type that in here, and it'll filter down the lineups you just built to get that. So let's go ahead and sim these. I believe this is working, but it might not be working quite yet. No, it looks like we got it. So now what we're doing is we're taking all those optimized lineups we built, all 20 in this case, that we filtered down to. And now it's filtering down to what contests are available. So let's just sim the moonshot today. We're going to import projections. We're going to use the same projection set that we used earlier. So we're right back to here. It defaults to 0 field points for everybody, and it's okay to, if everybody is a 0, then it'll automatically just use their projection for field points. If we wanted to use field points, then we can just import our projections. It'll bring up this no field point detected. We're going to use our projection value for it for now. It's going to take a second to set up everybody's projections. There we go. So now field points are filled in. So now if we wanted to, we could adjust like Michael King. He's been awesome. Lately, we can adjust him to, we'll say 22, not 212, 22 points. Give him a boost over what the field's going to use. But I don't want to go back because I just want to use the defaults for looking at our sim results to start. Okay, so then our configs for stacks. Again, I'm using the moonshot because there's only 10,000. That's more than enough to just use our defaults. So like our 70% of the field is going to use a stack. 50% of the field is going to use the max stack length, which is 5 on DraftKings. 70% of the field is going to have some kind of secondary stack, so like a 2-man or 3-man. We could even turn this down a little bit if we wanted. I'm just going to leave it as is. All that stuff looks fine to me. And then we have our stack settings here. So let's go ahead and we are going to have this so you can just import a CSV that has the ownerships, but in this case, I'm just going to type these out. So let's just go ahead and go back to my sim. So the Padres I had at 4.46%. Pirates, it's going to take a minute. Where are they? 4. 5.34. Giants are popular against Jonathan Cannon, it looks like, even though their offense has been awful. And they've got 1.5 good hitters. Where's Seattle? 5.55. Orioles that I haven't been able to project right all year long. A little over-owned in my opinion. Actually, they might be under-owned. Oh, they're under-owned today. Normally, my model does not like the Orioles compared to the field. Texas is 5.95. White Sox are 4.41. Toronto is, where are they? 6.54. The Angels, that also are somehow not as bad as the White Sox are, even though they haven't had Trout all year. And the A's, who have been actually kind of fun and have been profitable if you played them on the right days. So now we have our stack ownership in. We already have our lineups already added from the job that we imported from the optimizer. So we can just go ahead and run this thing, and this will be a good test because I haven't actually done the sim optimized lineups flow on our new build. So let's see if this thing, hopefully this thing's gonna work. What does doing what do, Sean? The team stack ownership? So team stack ownership, the way that the simulation model works is we build the field on demand, so the contest field that you're playing against, and every time you click run, we generate a new field for you based on your ownership projections and your config settings. So like I said, 70% of the lineups in this contest should be stacks. So of the 11,890 lineups in this contest, let's see. There's a 70% chance that each individual lineup will be a stack. And so in this case, we'll get on average about 8,300 lineups that are stacks per run. And there's some variance there because it's just randomly choosing every time it makes a new lineup. It randomly decides, is this lineup going to be a stack or not? And it's using that 70-30 split. And then if a lineup is a stack, then it uses the team stack ownership to decide what is the probability, like to decide which team stack that's going to be. So I gave it that vector of stacks. So it was like, what did I say? This vector here of ownership. So you can think of these as like, what is the probability that any random stack that we build is going to be the Mets? It'll be about 6.22%. So the basic idea here is if you, over 10,000 lineups, if you keep flipping a coin over and over with these probabilities, roughly you're going to get to the same field ownership on these teams as we expect. And then there's some hidden variance in there, right? Because we're randomly flipping a coin every time we make a new lineup, which is exactly what the field is doing as well. And so that kind of models that entropy a little bit, that randomness in DFS. Instead of just us telling you what the field is, and this is the field that you're going to use like other sites do, you're telling us what you think the field's going to be with some randomness in it. Does that make sense? Let's see if this one, I don't know if this is going to run with the optimize. We might have to import it a different way. Let's just run a default run without those lineups for now, just in case. I feel like probably with the validating data here, I feel like there's something with the way that the lineups are imported on our new build that is causing issues. Let's go back to home. Uh-oh. Now we're frozen. Okay, back to simulator. So we'll just sim this sim this slate without our optimized lineups. That was just for show, to show kind of how the sim optimized lineup workflow would work now. If you want to just build your own optimized lineups, or you want to test a couple of lineups against a simulation, that's the way you would do it. We can go back, bring back our moonshot. We'll use the same projections we used earlier. To retype all of these, just suboptimal. That's just crashed. Okay. So let's go back over here to our stack ownership, type all these in again. Royals, 8.4% today. My model hasn't really caught up to how good they've been this year, and so my numbers say they're going to be overowned, but I don't know. They've been a tough fade, and they've killed me all year long. And once we launch this thing, we will make some better some more and better content about how to use these tools and how to use the new UI, because it's definitely an adjustment. 4.81, 5.95. Pitt. And I think Oakland was the last, right? Oakland was 4.41. Oh wait, we already got them. Okay. So let's go ahead and run this again. My computer is struggling today. Let's close out of these. All right, so now we're past validating data. Now we're generating our lineups with those stack percentages I just typed in. There we go. So we got our lineups generated. The functions we have hooked up to our dev environment aren't quite as powerful as the ones we have on our prod, so that's why they're a little slower. The moonshot usually only takes about a minute on prod, but right now in dev they're taking a little longer. That's okay. So here what it's doing is it's taking our sim job, so all 11,000 lineups we built, and it's basically just putting it into a database table for us that we can then build our exposures with, right? So we have our 20. We can expand this out now to 150 because we have a lot of lineups. And we still have the option here if we download all lineups with this button. I'm not sure if this button's built yet, but there you go. Okay, so yeah. So now it's going to download all 11,000 lineups we just built. But now, here's our exposure for all 150. So if we just ran the default 150 by ROI, see it's sorted on ROI right now, we would end up with 98% Michael King. It's pretty aggressive. I don't know how you feel about Michael King. That's a lot. So then, say I just turn that down to 70%. Apply. Hopefully this time the query doesn't break. And it broke again. That's okay. Clear icon by the run. No, that's not it. Let's try refreshing. All right, so back to our sim results. Again, our team exposure part isn't built out, but at the end it would show you your stack ownership. So like, you know, how much Pittsburgh, of the 20 lineups that we're building right now, how much Pittsburgh are we getting? How many Seattle 5 stacks are we getting? And then allow you to kind of tune in those exposures. So if we just ran the top 20 by ROI, again, we get 90% Michael King, 55% Yusei Kikuchi. Oh, I see. Okay. And we can also, now we have filtering on top of the headers. So let's go back to 150 here. Good question, C. Davis. Not. Maybe there is. You have to ask Chan. I don't believe so. But at least for baseball, it's not really an issue, right? I mean, once you get down to the hitters, exposure gets pretty spread out, as it should with these sims. But what we can do is we can do some filtering on these headers. We can say, I only want, I don't know what the minimum. So our minimum projection here is 83. We can filter this now to, let's say, I only want lineups above 88 projection. Hopefully this query doesn't break. There we go. So now our ROIs down here on the bottom end are going to be a little lower, but our projections, now we filter down to projections. So now everything here is above an 88 projection. And then we could add more, right? So we can do a ROI filter if we wanted. We could use ceiling. Ceiling is just the projection plus a standard deviation for the player. We can make sure that we're getting salaries above a certain amount. Any one of these fields on this table we can filter on. We can filter out by ownership sum. And we can also just filter to, I don't actually know if this is going to do string matching correctly. Nope, right. So eventually we'll be able to filter on lineup stack, or we'll be able to control it with our team exposure. Thanks, Sheets. So if I was running the top 150 today, like I showed before, we tried to limit the exposure. Getting 99% Michael King today. He was the highest projected player in my projections. Let me pull that up again. But obviously that's aggressive, so we may want to filter that down a little bit. If our table, if the filtering is working, that's probably what I would be doing. I don't think it's really worth ever playing 99% of a pitcher unless they're like a 4K minimum salary, you know, Paul Skeens or whatever. But it's not like there's great pitching on this slate anyway, right? I mean, let me go back to the sim screen. It's a little easier to filter there. The other issue could be too with this much exposure is when we set our minimum salary. It is a 9-game slate, but there's not much high price pitching, right? King is the highest price pitcher by far, by over 1,000. Actually, by who's the second highest? Who's that at 9,500? But he could just be getting filtered up because in lineups because they're trying to hit the minimum salary. It's like Seth Lugo's 9,500. He's the next most expensive pitcher, and he's a full 3.5 points less projected than Michael King. I'm not sure why this is. Let's just reset our field projection real quick. Oops. So we could say instead of 49,200, let's just lower the salary a little bit. Not change. We don't have to change anything else. I guess we'd want to type in our stacks. Where's my? But that would be one way to maybe get a little more diverse with our pitcher ownership. Is just lower our minimum salary, and that way we can get more combinations of pitchers with some of our lower price stacks. See anything other? So what stacks are we getting here in our? So some Seattle, a lot of Dodgers, not surprising. Good lineup. Here's a Padres 5 stack with some one-offs. How does it project? Oh, let's turn off our filter here. Rerun these entries. So Pirates were the top stack, and my model likes them, only 4.75% owned. This top lineup projects really well with the Kikuchi King. Then it's just a straight Pittsburgh 5, Cincinnati 3. And the reason, well, never mind. I was going to say the reason is because Kikuchi, you get the Kikuchi leverage by playing the Reds because they're playing Toronto, but I forgot he got traded to Houston. So you get the Gauss can leverage. Basically, this lineup is saying just play the two best pitchers, two highest owned pitchers, and then fade the third, right? Or I guess the fourth highest owned pitcher. Kind of like the one pivot off Kikuchi here for $300 difference. You get the leverage by playing the red 3 stack against him. Let's go ahead and since we don't have the team exposures built, let's just download these lineups. I think I already did that. So open up the sheet and we'll make a new Google Sheet. File, import. Let's go ahead and upload that moonshot we just ran. Let's go ahead and import this. So all I'm going to do here is just look, like I've shown before, all I'm going to do is look at our stack exposures. So first we'll just filter data, create a filter on Google Sheets. And we're only going to look at, first we can just sort on ROI. We'll just do this as simple as possible. We'll go ahead and grab the top 150 as if I was playing the top 150 tonight. Move these over. Then we have our stacks. We're going to insert a column to the right, paste our stacks in, and then we're going to split text to columns on semicolon. Go ahead and just delete this column. And we'll take this one, split text to columns again, except for this time we're going to split on a hyphen, because that's how we denote these 4 4s. So there's only a few, not the end of the world, that we aren't taking into account. Actually, yeah, I don't really care about them. So here's our, we'll call this our primary stack. Then we're going to make a pivot table to a new sheet. And we're going to use primary stack. And then we're going to use lineup index to get an idea of our exposures. And then let's go ahead and just bring in our average ROI, our average win percentage, and our average projection for these stacks. And then let's see, go ahead and so we get 32 Dodger stacks, 26. So this is pretty, what is 20% of our lineups of our 150. I don't know why it's saying 160. Did I copy 160? Yes, I did. Let's remove these. Here we go. So 20% of our stacks, just running the top 150 by ROI, are going to be the Dodgers, which is pretty interesting. Is that because, how do they project? Let's go back to here and give it a second here. Okay. And then let's look at the Dodgers projections. So you get the Ohtani projection and ownership. Brian Wu, not very high owned, so it's not like we're getting leverage there. It's interesting how well the Dodgers sim. I mean, I guess you're getting the Ohtani high projection, and you're not getting that Royals ownership when you play the Dodgers. That part makes sense to me, but why they're simming so well. And again, 5% owned for the Dodgers versus 8% owned for the Royals. That makes sense. You're getting leverage off of them, off of the Royals, I mean. Then we get a bunch of Pittsburgh stacks. They sim really well. They're high leverage team. Only 4.75% owned, but they are, I believe, a top 5 team in terms of being the top stack tonight. Houston. Who's pitching against Houston? Tanner Hawk. I don't know how to pronounce his name. They are a good leverage spot tonight. The Padres, I think, were my third highest probability. We only get about 10% of them. Well, let me expand these out a little bit. There we go. And no Royals, importantly, no Royals in our top 150, just running ROI. But if we do the same thing, except for on every lineup we generated, we can check and see how they simmed. So let's go ahead and split text to columns again, do the same thing. So first we're going to split on semicolon. And then we're going to split again, except this time we're going to use the hyphen. And again, all this stuff we'll be able to do with the new UI, with these filter options here, the team exposure and player exposure options. I'm just showing for tonight's slate because I'm playing it. Let's make a new pivot table. And we're going to put it on the same pivot table sheet. Let's just put it here. It's fine. So then we're going to not forget to label our columns. There we go. Primary stack is our rows. Let's filter and make sure that filter on condition. We'll just go ahead and say text does not contain 1. And we'll do another filter. Oh, that didn't work like I wanted it to. Actually, a simpler way to do this is just go to lineup type. We can filter on this. And we can just filter out these generated no stack where it's a bunch of one-offs. We can ignore those and just look at our stacks what you made. So now we have these. So again, we're going to look at our count, how many there are. Then we're going to look at our sim ROI. We're going to look at our win percentages. And we're going to look at our projections. And in this case, let's just sort on how many there are. So there's, how many? Is that like 700? Okay, that makes sense. We said there were what? 8.4% Royal stacks. There's 12,000 lineups in the contest, so about 80 something, what did I say, 8,000 lineups are stacks, and so 700 of those, so right around 8.4%. We can do the math. That'll be this is the number of stacks we should get, roughly. We got 8388. Or, it's 11,890 times 0.7. So we should get about 8,323 stacks. And in this sim run, we got 8,388 stacks. And then of those, we can actually just bring these numbers in. Actually, we don't need to do that. So I said there were 8.4% of lineups should be a Royal stack. So we can just sum these. So there were 695 Royal stacks. And let's just see what percentage this was. So about 8.4% of lineups of our stacks were Royal stacks. So it just shows how, again, how our stack generation works. And about half of them were 5 stacks, or a little more than half of them were 5 stacks, and then a little under half were 4 stacks of Royals. And in both cases, they did not sim very well. Right, the average ROI was pretty low, probably because they were so popular, and their average win percentage was pretty low. Again, probably because they're so popular. So if like we were to sort on ROI, our best performing stacks overall were Dodgers, Pittsburgh, San Diego, Houston, Seattle. And that's what we ended up with, right, in our top 5 for our top 150 lineups. And these are like the only plus EV stacks to make tonight would be your 5-man stacks of these teams. Dodgers, Pirates, Padres, Houston, Mariners, and the Twins. All these lineups pretty much project the same. You see not much of a difference between like a Reds 4 stack and a Royals 5 stack, for example. So it just comes down to ownership, right? I mean, that's all baseball is because there's so much variance. It's all about ownership and leverage. So even though we think that the Royals have the best chance to be the top stack tonight, just because of their ownership, they just don't sim well. They're not a good play to make in large field contests. You're much better off going with a team with half the ownership that maybe doesn't have as much talent, but has been pretty hot as of late, like the Padres, for example. So anyways, that's DraftKings tonight. I don't think I'm going to do FanDuel. I think I'm going to... What time is it? It's 4 o'clock. Yeah, I'm going to... let's see how many lineups are left. I'm going to rerun projections here whenever we get these last few lineups in. The first round of projections are already up. I believe they have every team through... I want to say the last team was the Rangers. But it might be the Pirates, actually. But as these lineups keep coming in, I'll update projections for tonight. I think I was having some issues with what the Twins' projected lineup was and what my projected lineup was. But if anybody doesn't have any questions for me, if you want to take a look again at the UI, the new UI that we're going to be launching here in the next week or so. Again, we have our exposures. So this bar here just shows you what your exposures are for these lineups that are being shown. And the same kind of, you can filter against, like, here's all my Taj Bradley. You can filter based off of any of these table headers. You can also just sort by them, right? Click on this. They're sorting lowest to highest projection, highest to lowest projection in our 150 set. Yeah, and then you'll be able to filter on players and teams over here. So if you wanted to make sure you got a certain amount of Will Smith, you could do that. And if you wanted to make sure you limited how much Michael King you got tonight, you would just change this value. And I'm not going to type it in again because it's going to break the script. But you just type that in, hit enter, and it'll or you hit apply exposure filters, and it'll automatically filter down to your top 150 lineups with only getting 70% Michael King. And by default, we're sorting on ROI when we do that. When we say top 150, we're saying the top 150 lineups by ROI. It's the easiest shorthand. Eventually, we're going to bake in some more stuff around portfolio management. So we're not just only looking at ROI. We'll be looking at some other factors too to make sure that your lineup set is diverse and you're not just cannibalizing yourself with, like, let's say you played at 75 Dodgers lineups and they were 1% owned. I mean, if the Dodgers were the optimal stack, that's great, but you have all these lineups that are competing with each other. That's not necessarily what you're looking for. You're looking for a little more diversity in your lineup set. So we'll be incorporating tools like that as we keep building on top of this. But that's about it for today. Here's our same kind of player stats information here. You can see our ROI for some of these players. Miguel Rojas, a Dodger, was our best performing player by ROI on average. He was in the most. Looks like he had no, actually, he did not have the highest win prob. Who had the highest win prob? Well, probably Michael King. Yeah, Michael King. So 36% chance in that sim we just ran that he would be in the top. He will be in the winning lineup tonight, which I believe is still under his ownership. I think his ownership is 31%, and just in this run with default settings, he's in 36% of the winning lineups. So he seems like he's very under-owned today, even though he's super chalky. But yeah, that's it. Any other questions, you guys? And again, if you liked the new look of this and you want to check us out before NFL starts, we have a promo code for you. It's AceMind24. Put it in the chat again. Highly recommend, if you are going to sign up, I highly recommend you do it before NFL starts. It's definitely worth it for you. Because once you sign up and you keep your subscription, your price is locked in forever. We'll never raise price on somebody that has already assigned a paying user. And so I recommend, if you want to check us out, sign up with that promo code. But I think that's going to do it. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Have a great one, and good luck tonight. And I would never say this out loud, but it looks like I'm going to be saying Go Dodgers a lot tonight.